What started as a routine promotional appearance turned into television chaos when Jennifer Lopez confronted Jimmy Kimmel over his relentless questioning about her personal life, leading to an explosive on-air meltdown that ended with the superstar walking off set. The Jimmy Kimmel Live studio buzzed with its usual pre-show energy. Jennifer Lopez sat in the guest chair, radiant in a form-fitting emerald dress, her signature confidence intact, as she prepared to promote her latest Netflix documentary. The audience was electric, phones already recording as they anticipated another entertaining celebrity interview. What they were about to witness would become one of the most talked-about television moments of the year. Kimmel opened with his characteristic smirk, diving straight into what he clearly thought would be comedic gold. "So Jenny, or should I say J-Lo, or maybe we should just call you Mrs. Well, what are we calling you these days?" The audience chuckled nervously as Lopez's smile tightened almost imperceptibly. She maintained her composure, deflecting with practiced ease about focusing on her work and artistic projects. But Kimmel wasn't finished. He leaned forward with that familiar gleam in his eye that regular viewers knew meant trouble. "Come on, you've got to give us something. The tabloids are having a field day with your love life. First Ben, then not Ben, then Ben again, then not Ben again. It's like watching a very expensive tennis match." The audience laughed louder this time, but Lopez's jaw visibly clenched. Her publicist, standing just off camera, shifted uncomfortably. "Jimmy, I'm here to talk about my documentary, which explores my journey as an artist and entrepreneur," Lopez responded coolly, her professional mask still firmly in place. "I think people are really going to connect with the authenticity and vulnerability I show in the film." She attempted to steer the conversation toward safer territory, but Kimmel had clearly decided this wasn't going to be a typical promotional interview. "Authenticity, right?" Kimmel said, air quoting with exaggerated emphasis. "Speaking of authenticity, how authentic is it to put your entire relationship on social media and then act surprised when people have opinions about it? I mean, you were basically live tweeting your romance." The studio fell into an uncomfortable silence as Lopez's eyes narrowed. Even the camera operators seemed to sense the shift in atmosphere. Lopez took a measured breath, her media training kicking in. "I share what I choose to share, Jimmy. And I think there's a difference between sharing joy and having every aspect of your private life dissected for entertainment." Her voice carried a warning edge that anyone with emotional intelligence would have recognized, but Kimmel seemed oblivious to the growing tension. "But that's the thing, though, isn't it?" Kimmel pressed on, clearly feeling he was building to some grand comedic moment. "You can't have it both ways. You can't put everything out there and then get upset when people comment. It's like putting on a concert and then getting mad when people listen to the music." The audience gave a scattered laugh, but many were beginning to look uncomfortable. Lopez's composure finally began to crack. "That's not the same thing at all, and you know it. There's a difference between my art and my personal relationships. There's a difference between sharing moments and having them turned into gossip." Her voice rose slightly and Kimmel's eyes lit up as if he'd struck gold. "Gossip? Jenny, you literally had photographers at your wedding. You sold the pictures to magazines. How is that not making your personal life into entertainment?" Kimmel's tone was becoming more aggressive, abandoning any pretense of playful banter. The audience was now completely silent, sensing they were witnessing something that had gone far beyond typical late-night comedy. Lopez stood up abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor with a sound that echoed through the suddenly quiet studio. "You know what, Jimmy? I don't have to sit here and listen to this. I came here as a professional courtesy, to promote my work and connect with fans. I didn't come here to be ambushed and have my personal life mocked." Her voice was steady but filled with barely controlled anger. Kimmel, realizing he might have pushed too far but unable to back down in front of his live audience, doubled down with a nervous laugh. "Oh, come on, don't be so sensitive. This is comedy. This is what we do here. If you can't handle a few jokes about your very public relationships, maybe don't make them so public." The words hung in the air like a challenge, and everyone in the studio could feel the moment crystallizing into something that would be replayed endlessly on social media. Lopez stared at him for a long moment, her chest rising and falling as she processed what had just happened. The cameras continued rolling, capturing every nuance of her expression, as she made a decision that would define not just this interview, but potentially both of their careers. The tension in the room was so thick it seemed to press against everyone present, and in that moment of suspended time, everyone knew that whatever happened next would change everything. "You want to know what's really not funny, Jimmy?" Lopez's voice cut through the silence like a blade. She took a step closer to his desk, her eyes blazing with an intensity that made several audience members shift uncomfortably in their seats. "What's not funny is a grown man who thinks he can humiliate women for entertainment. What's not funny is using someone's personal pain as punchlines for your monologue." Kimmel's nervous laughter faltered completely. He glanced toward his producers in the wings, seeking some kind of lifeline, but they were frozen in place, unsure whether to cut to commercial or let the train wreck continue. The live audience sat in stunned silence, phones still recording, capturing every second of the explosive confrontation unfolding before them. "Jenny, look, I think you're overreacting here," Kimmel stammered, his usual confidence evaporating. "This is just how late-night television works. We make jokes about celebrities. That's literally the job description." He attempted a self-deprecating smile, but it came across as weak and desperate. Lopez laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Overreacting? Jimmy, you just spent 10 minutes dissecting my personal relationships like they're a joke. You mocked my choices, my feelings, my life. And when I try to redirect to my actual work, you ignore it completely." Her voice was getting stronger, more controlled, which somehow made her words even more cutting. The host tried to regain control of his show. "Look, if you can't handle a little ribbing, maybe you shouldn't be in the entertainment business. This is what we do to everyone who comes on the show." His defensive tone only made him look smaller as Lopez towered over him, her presence commanding the entire studio. "No, Jimmy, this is what you do to women," Lopez shot back. "Let me ask you something. When Ryan Reynolds was here last month promoting his movie, did you spend the entire interview talking about his marriage? When The Rock was on, did you make jokes about his personal life falling apart? Or do you save that special treatment just for us girls?" The question hung in the air like an accusation, and everyone in the studio knew she was right. Kimmel's mouth opened and closed like a fish, unable to form a coherent response. His writers, watching from the wings, looked at each other in panic, realizing their boss had walked straight into a trap of his own making. That's different," Kimmel finally managed weakly. "Those guys don't put their relationships on social media like you do." Lopez's eyes flashed dangerously. "So because I share moments of happiness with my fans, that gives you permission to tear me down? Because I'm open about my life, that means I deserve to be mocked? Do you hear yourself right now?" Her voice was rising again, and the raw emotion in it was palpable. The audience was completely captivated now, watching one of the most powerful women in entertainment dismantle a talk show host in real time. Several people in the front row were openly recording, knowing they were witnessing television history. The energy in the room had shifted completely, and everyone could feel it. Kimmel made one last desperate attempt to salvage the situation. "Come on, Jenny. Sit back down. Let's start over. We can talk about your documentary." His voice was pleading now, the bravado completely gone. But it was too late, and everyone knew it. "Start over?" Lopez repeated incredulously. "Jimmy, you just showed your true colors on live television. You showed everyone exactly what you think. Of women. Of me. Of basic human decency. And you want to start over?" She shook her head slowly, her expression a mixture of disgust and disappointment that was somehow more devastating than anger. The silence that followed was deafening. Camera operators zoomed in on both their faces, capturing Kimmel's growing panic and Lopez's steely resolve. The studio audience held its collective breath, sensing that they were about to witness something that would be talked about for years to come. In the wings, producers frantically whispered into their headsets, trying to decide whether to cut the feed or let the drama continue to unfold live. Lopez turned to face the audience directly, ignoring Kimmel completely. "You know what? I want to talk to you all for a minute," she said, her voice calm but carrying an authority that commanded absolute attention. "You came here tonight expecting entertainment, and I get that. But what you just witnessed isn't entertainment. It's harassment disguised as comedy." The audience was transfixed. Several people nodded in agreement, while others looked uncomfortable at being drawn into the confrontation. Lopez continued, her presence filling the entire studio. "I've been in this business for 30 years. I've worked my way up from the Bronx to become a successful artist, actress, entrepreneur, and mother. And I'm still sitting here having to defend my right to basic respect." Kimmel tried desperately to interject. "Jenny, please, can we just—" "Don't interrupt me," Lopez cut him off sharply, not even looking in his direction. The authority in her voice was so absolute that Kimmel actually recoiled. "You've had your time to talk, Jimmy. Now it's mine." The power dynamic had completely shifted, and everyone in the room could feel it. She walked closer to the audience, making eye contact with individual people. "How many of you have daughters? Sons? How would you feel if someone spoke to them the way he just spoke to me?" Several audience members shifted uncomfortably, the question hitting home. "Would you want your children to think this is acceptable? That this is funny?" Behind her, Kimmel was visibly sweating now, his usual composure completely shattered. He kept looking toward his producers for help, but they were paralyzed, unsure whether intervening would make things better or worse. The show had gone completely off script, and nobody knew how to regain control. Lopez turned back toward Kimmel, her expression a mixture of disappointment and resolve. "You know what the real tragedy is, Jimmy? You have a platform. You have influence. You could use that to lift people up, to celebrate achievements, to inspire. Instead, you choose to tear women down for cheap laughs." "That's not what I was doing," Kimmel protested weakly, his voice barely audible. It was just jokes. It's comedy." "Jokes." Lopez's voice rose incredulously. "Jimmy, tell me exactly what was funny about mocking my relationships. Explain the punchline to me. What part of a woman trying to find love and happiness is supposed to be hilarious?" Her questions came rapid fire, each one landing like a blow. Kimmel opened his mouth, but no words came out. The silence stretched on, making his inability to answer even more damning. The audience was completely silent now, the tension so thick it was almost suffocating. "You can't answer because there is no punchline," Lopez continued relentlessly. "There's no joke. There's just cruelty dressed up as entertainment. And the saddest part is, you don't even see it." Her voice carried a note of genuine sadness that somehow made her words even more powerful. The cameras captured everything. Kimmel's growing desperation, Lopez's unwavering composure, the audience's rapt attention. Social media was already exploding as people shared clips and screenshots, but nobody in the studio was thinking about that. They were all too caught up in the raw drama unfolding before them. Lopez walked back toward her chair but didn't sit down. Instead, she picked up her purse with deliberate slowness, her movements controlled and purposeful. "I came here tonight to promote my documentary about resilience, about overcoming obstacles, about never giving up on your dreams. Ironically, I'm now living that documentary right here on your stage." Kimmel made one final desperate attempt to salvage the situation. "Jenny, please don't leave like this. We can fix this. We can edit it out. Start fresh tomorrow. Nobody has to see any of this." His voice was pleading, almost begging, and the desperation was painful to watch. "Lopez, looked at him with something that might have been pity. "Jimmy, this is live television. Everyone is already seeing it. And you know what? I'm glad they are. Because maybe, just maybe, this will make people think twice about what we accept as entertainment." She adjusted her purse strap and took a step toward the exit. The studio was dead silent except for the hum of cameras and the barely audible whispers of crew members. Every eye was on Lopez as she prepared to make her final statement, the moment that would define not just this interview, but potentially reshape how celebrity interviews were conducted forever. Lopez took a deep breath and looked directly into the main camera, speaking not just to the studio audience but to millions of viewers watching at home. "To everyone watching tonight, I want you to remember this moment. Remember that you have the power to demand better. You don't have to laugh at jokes that tear people down. You don't have to accept cruelty as entertainment." Her voice was steady, powerful, carrying the weight of 3 decades in the entertainment industry. "I've been called difficult, diva, demanding throughout my career simply for standing up for myself and others. Well, if demanding respect makes me difficult, then I'll wear that label proudly." Kimmel sat frozen behind his desk, his face pale and drawn. The confident entertainer who had opened the show was nowhere to be seen, replaced by a man who clearly understood his career might never recover from this moment. His handlers in the wings were making frantic gestures, but he seemed unable to move or speak. "Jimmy," Lopez said, finally turning back to address him directly, "I hope you learned something from tonight. I hope you remember that behind every celebrity, every public figure, every person you interview, there's a human being with feelings, with dignity, with a right to be treated with basic respect." She paused, letting her words sink in. The audience remained completely silent, hanging on every word. Several people were visibly emotional, moved by the raw honesty of the moment. "I've given this industry everything I have," Lopez continued. "I've worked harder than most people can imagine, overcome obstacles that would have stopped others, and achieved things I once only dreamed of. And I'll be damned if I'm going to sit here and let anyone treat me like I'm worth less than the respect every human being deserves." With that, she turned and began walking toward the exit. Her heels clicked against the floor with deliberate precision, each step echoing through the silent studio. The cameras followed her movement, capturing the grace and dignity in her exit. Even in the midst of such confrontation, Kimmel finally found his voice, calling out desperately, "Jenny, wait! Please!" But she didn't turn around, didn't acknowledge him, didn't break stride. Her silence was more powerful than any words could have been. As Lopez reached the edge of the stage, she paused for just a moment and looked back at the audience. One final time. "To my fans, to everyone who supports my work, thank you for your loyalty. To everyone else, I hope tonight showed you that standing up for yourself isn't about being difficult or demanding. It's about knowing your worth." The exit doors closed behind her with a soft thud that seemed to echo through the entire studio. For several long seconds, nobody moved. The audience sat in stunned silence, cameras still rolling, capturing the aftermath of what would undoubtedly become one of the most talked-about moments in late-night television history. Kimmel remained at his desk, visibly shaken, unable to continue with his usual closing remarks. A producer finally stepped onto the stage and whispered something in his ear. The host nodded weakly and looked into the camera with none of his usual swagger. We'll be right back," he managed to say, his voice barely above a whisper. The show cut to commercial, but the damage was already done. Social media was exploding with clips of the confrontation. Respect J-Lo was trending worldwide within minutes, and entertainment news outlets were already preparing their breaking news reports. In the following hours, the clip would be viewed millions of times across every platform. Public opinion was overwhelmingly on Lopez's side, with countless people sharing their own stories of workplace harassment and disrespect. Kimmel's show saw its ratings plummet overnight, with several major sponsors pulling their advertising. Industry insiders began speaking out about the need for change in how interviews were conducted, with many citing Lopez's courage in confronting unacceptable behavior on live television. The incident became a catalyst for broader conversations about respect, professionalism, and the treatment of women in entertainment. Lopez, meanwhile, released a simple statement the next morning. "I stand by everything I said last night. It's time we all demanded better from ourselves and each other." Her documentary, when it was eventually released, became a massive success, with many crediting her powerful stand on Kimmel's show as the reason audiences connected so deeply with her message of resilience and self-respect. The confrontation had indeed changed everything, proving that sometimes the most important moments in television happen when someone finally says, "Enough is enough."